Welcome back to the Hoops Lounge, the show where we pay our interns with Canadian Tire money. My name is Marc Griffin, aka Montreal Marc, and this week on the show we are talking LeBron James. Will he ever leave Miami? I am joined by my partner in crime, Phil Boileau, aka Sporting Phil. Phil, so Chandler Parsons, we're going to dive into this, said on national TV in the States that he is thinking Miami is not going to be having LeBron James in their uniform next year, that he may be heading to Cleveland. What are your thoughts on LeBron right now, who may not be winning may not be getting that three-peat?
No, I think Chandler Parsons is a pretty smart guy at this point. I think LeBron James is looking at this roster saying, hey, I'm doing everything alone. I'm the one putting in all the effort. I don't think they're utilizing Bosh well, but Wade's looking his age. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of speculation. I mean, LeBron could go anywhere. Most teams would want LeBron James. But realistically, where he's going to go, it's going to be stay in Miami or go home to Cleveland. And I think Cleveland, with the #1 pick, Kyrie Irving, some cap space, potential to trade for a guy like Kevin Love or someone else, I think it just makes sense. I think Cleveland just has to do their job to show that we can contend next year, because LeBron James is not going to go somewhere where they're not immediate contenders. But if Cleveland can shore that up, or at least show that, we have an all-star in Kyrie, we have, like a buddy, like I'm imagine a wing of Andrew Wiggins and LeBron James. There's that tantalizing aspect. And when you look at what they're lacking right now, for years Miami won based on athleticism, speed, and just dominance. And as that roster gets older, you would have that in Cleveland. So I think Chandler Parsons is a smart guy, and he's playing for his own job as well. His job's not secure there in Houston.
Well, I got to bring up a four-letter word here, and it's been discussed quite a bit concerning Miami, and that four-letter word is mellow. Do you think they're going to bring him in this year?
I think it's interesting because I think if they're able to retain James, I think they bring in Melo. I don't think Melo takes that huge pay cut if LeBron James is out of there, because you would just be changing LeBron James for Melo, which to me makes less sense, because then they'd all just be scorers. And what LeBron James brings is that ability to guard the 1 to the 5. And when you lose that and just bring it with a scoring big or a scoring wing, I don't really see it. So, I mean, I don't see it as a high possibility to begin with. I mean, there's been a few articles breaking down these salaries of how much they'd be throwing away. I mean, all these guys would have to take huge pay cuts, like from the world of 40 million up to 80 million possibly lost in salaries over the next 4 or 5 years, depending how they want to be signed. But I think there are greener pastures for Melo. I think if he went there, he would forever be seen as that guy who couldn't get it done and had to join 3 other superstars. I think Chicago makes more sense. I think there are a bunch more. So I'm actually going to say it doesn't happen, because I think they're all smart businessmen. They want the money, and they want to be known as guys who can do it on their own.
Well, I think for LeBron and his legacy, he's already, you could say, tarnished because he had to leave a team, join another team, and bring in other forces. Whereas you talk about guys like Magic or Tim Duncan or Larry Bird, saying they were resilient, remained with a franchise. And Dirk Nowitzki, you could say that way too. Loyal, they stuck it out. They weathered the storm. One thing Miami could do, and you talked about it a little bit, was just bring in reinforcements for LeBron. And one guy that's been talked about quite a bit, and I don't think Raptors fans want to hear this, but Kyle Lowry, bringing him in as a point guard. Do you think that would be something feasible for Miami?
Well, I think it's shown in this year's playoffs, aside from a few clutch moments by Norris Cole, where he's kind of gotten behind defenders, their point guard position hasn't given them much production. Kyle Lowry is an interesting idea. He's kind of a score-first point guard, so there's a lot of scoring on that team. I personally think this team needs to lose one of their big 3 and just flesh out into better role players all around to be successful. But I think Kyle Lowry makes a lot of sense. But if they retain these guys at their current salaries, if they don't opt out, they're each making about $20 million. So how much money do you have left over for Kyle Lowry, unless you just let the rest of the roster go? And even then, so I think it's a good fit, but I think it's a tough call, because I don't think LeBron James takes a pay cut for Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, it's very much a money game, as you said, and as you one word you mentioned there was aging, and I think this has been understated in the series that one of the guys who's really not himself is Birdman. He last year he was like I mentioned in a piece last week for a Naismith Moment. I mean, he was shooting something like 78% during the NBA Finals, and he's just a complete shell of himself now. I know he's battling a thigh injury. He missed quite a bit of the playoffs, but their key role players have not been what they're supposed to be. I mean, Shane Battier's been completely invisible, and he's retiring this season as well. I mean, they really have to look at their roster this offseason because they're going to have to make some major changes.
Well, I think the major changes is the key one there. I think for years they've assumed that having the big three and bringing in some little pieces, Ray Allen, you don't want to call him a little piece, but guys like Beasley, Oden, just to play minute minutes here and there, that was good enough. But with the aging core, they need more than that. I really think the only way to do that is to send one of the big three packing. I mean, it's interesting that if LeBron James left, it would be tough for the Heat to compete, but I could see you taking that same money and fleshing around Bosh and Wade. Now, this is assuming Wade comes back to any kind of health, but having Bosh more of a secure front court scoring role and Wade more of a backcourt role, I could still see them being successful, but I think the Heat are kind of topping out at this point. I think they've realized that their heyday was maybe last year, and this is kind of the best they're going to do. I mean, unless some superstar decides to take drastically less money. And to me, the superstar shouldn't be a scoring wing. What they really need is a 1 and a 5. And I think it's going to be interesting how they go about, kind of taking that hit to the ego that the big three aren't enough anymore.
I mean, you talked about the Cavs. For me, I don't really think that's an option right now for LeBron. I mean, anything can happen, obviously, with free agency, and it's going to be a frenzy, and then, names being tossed around like Kevin Love, things like that. But, I mean, I saw a really interesting tweet, I think a week ago, and it was something like Phil Jackson sleeps at night thinking about LeBron James in the triangle. The Knicks have money. They have a guy who's done it all in Phil Jackson. They have a new coach in Derek Fisher. And they've got a market and a fan base really, really screaming once again to have a player like LeBron there. I think it's an option. I don't know if he'll do it. The money is obviously there. The marketing scheme is there. Do you think LeBron could end up in the Big Apple?
I'm going to say no, because I don't think he would go without Carmelo Anthony. And to keep Melo, you're paying him big bucks, and you're going to have to shed some salary. I mean, like, while they have deep pockets, I mean, you still have Amari, you still have Tyson, you still have Bargnani. There's a lot of albatross contracts on that team. Mm-hmm. And LeBron had the chance to go to New York before he went to Miami, and he did look at it. I just think the overriding factor here is that he regretted the way he went about leaving Cleveland, and I don't think he wants to just jump ship for another whatever. Like, I think he's either going to go for a sure thing or a 50-50 back to repair those bridges in Cleveland. I think that sentimental aspect plays a little bit more. Like, I think if Cleveland can get anywhere close to contending, like if he thinks the Cleveland team can make the playoffs without him, and him in addition would be the difference. I mean, there's a lot of talent on that team, and with a passing guy like him, I mean, guys like Anthony Bennett, guys like Tristan Thompson, if you add another talent in this draft, and possibly, you have a lot of free agent money. I know they're going to throw a lot at Kyrie Irving, but let's not forget Kyrie Irving is a star guard, and I think they would play really well together. I can't see him going somewhere that's not Miami or Cleveland if it's not like a guaranteed, like San Antonio, OKC, like you're in the finals for sure next year kind of deal.
So it's going to be a to be continued with LeBron James, and we'll see as he keeps working on his Mount Rushmore. Like we said, the three-peat's not likely, but he's always got something up his sleeve. So I wanted to thank you, Phil, and I will see you guys again soon in the lounge.
Take care, guys.